Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Sunday Night Live, the automotive show where we talk about all things automotive. Variable ops, fixed ops, doesn't really matter. It has to do with the car business and making you more money. We bring on the experts to share with us what they do, and sometimes they tell us how they do it. Other times it's just a teaser to get you interested, so you want to learn more. But rest assured, we're going to have an awesome show tonight. Have Hugh Hathcock and Kayla McCoy from Velocity Automotive Solutions. And we are talking about decades upon decades of experience and knowledge. Before we jump into that, I want to give a quick update on the knees. And, I think I'll be back to 100% normal within the next 2, maybe 3 months on the outside. Doing a bunch more exercises, and the up and down the stairs stuff is great. The mobility is awesome. So I set my mind to it. I do everything needed to assure that I'm going to have over 100% recovery. So that's where we're at. So for those of you, maybe one or two that haven't heard of these guys, where have you been? I would like to welcome Hugh and Kayla. Please tell everybody a little bit about yourselves, and then we'll jump right into it.
Hey,
all right.
Thanks for having us.
I think a lot of people have heard of eLead. eLead was my company, CRM company, for 20-something years. And before that, we had a call center. And before that, we were Fresh Beginnings, which was a follow-up cookie retention company that started back in 84, 85. So I've been in the business 35, 40 years. A lot of dealers, a lot of relationships. Kayla's been in the middle of this with me on the CRM side for, you were with eLead how long?
Probably 7 years. So I've been doing this about 10 or 12 now. I was with DealerTrack prior to that, and had a good start right out of the gate from college. The automotive is the only thing I've ever done. So here we are.
There's no business like the car business. The only problem is when you first get into it, they never tell you nobody ever gets out alive. They don't tell you that. Because I've been in it.
It is true. It is true.
41 plus decades, 41 plus years now.
Yeah.
And I love it. There is no business like it. I couldn't think of doing anything else, whether you're on the dealer side, the vendor side, doesn't really matter. Nobody gets out. So thank you guys for being on. I'm very excited to kind of get into your story. And, it's funny, we were talking before a little bit about the start, and I'd like you to talk about how you got started in the business some decades ago. And you mentioned something about cookies. And cookies, I'm thinking electronic tracking cookies. I'm not thinking the other. So fascinating story. Why don't you share with us kind of how you got started and what the thought process was behind that?
Well, I didn't want to go to college because back in the mid 80s, I felt like I wanted to start something and make some money quicker than spend 4 years out of university. And I wanted to sell something, and they don't really teach you selling and entrepreneurship in college. So I started Fresh Beginnings, which was originally a chocolate chip cookie retention card system that we went into dealerships back starting in 84, 85, and actually cold called dealers and basically went in and said, hey, we've got a canister of cookies, press baked chocolate chip cookies, and a card system where we send this out to your customer's workplace after you sell a new or used car. You fax me, and the key word there is fax. You fax me a list weekly of your sold customers. I'm going to make the cookies, put them in a designer canister, hand sign the cards with your name, Mr. Dealer, and this is going to go to your consumer's workplace, week or so after they buy the car from you. It's going to create a lot of positive word of mouth advertising. Then we're going to send out a birthday card and a holiday card. And it was all a, believe it or not, inclusive $9.95 program that in about 3 years, just door to door, I set up about 1,500 dealers. And then in the next 2.5 years, we got up to 3,000 dealers all across. This was mainly the north, southeast, central, not that much West Coast business, but a ton in Texas. About 3,000 dealers that just were cookie customers. And back then, the manufacturers were just getting started with CSI. So it was a big CSI thing for a dealer, because once we sent the cookies out, we included a card that would come back to the dealer, and it would, we would ask the main CSI questions that Ford or General Motors were sending out, and he had time to correct it because it was a 30-day mail survey from the OEMs back then. And that was the first time OEM started surveying customers and basing dealers' inventories and scores and profits and stuff on that. So we started at the right time, and got in front of a lot of dealers, and that worked out really good for us.
Well, I have to tell you that's brilliant, because first of all, who doesn't love cookies, and who doesn't love chocolate chip cookies? That's number one. Number two, for the canister to show up at work is brilliant unto itself, because now you've got a captive audience. One person cracks open a canister of cookies at work, everybody's coming over. Everybody's coming over.
Well, that was a big sales pitch of it back then. The word of mouth. We concentrated. I didn't have a lot of salespeople. I had like 3 salespeople, and really the first year was just a couple of us. And my dad baked the cookies. It was a real small company, and we really sold it that way. And from there, it was probably 92. The call center was next. We actually had 3,000 relationships with car dealers, and the average billable back then, the cookies were only like $9.95. So if a guy sold 100 cars, he was paying me, $1,000, and I was looking for ways to grow revenue stream and grow the company. So we started. We put in a predictive dialer, which back in the early 90s there weren't a lot of call centers in the auto industry. We focused on unsold showroom traffic and set up a dialer in Valdosta, Georgia. And it only had 8 stations and probably 15, 20 people running it, but we had a lot of relationships with a lot of great dealers, and we basically would go in and I would say, hey, you've done cookies with me for 5 years. Now I'm going to call your customers. If you've got 400 ups a month and you're only selling 20% of them, or your closing percentage is 10 or whatever it is, those 300 customers that are leaving prospects, I'm going to turn that into 100 B-backs, and you're going to sell 50 of these cars. And this is $4 times 300, and it's a $1,200 flat fee. And that really was the key to the company, because we really took off after that. I mean, an average store was probably billing $2,000 in call center business, and we were able to go in 2 to 3 years. We were able to do what we'd done in the cookies in half the time, because it was a sales tool.
And it automated what your salespeople are supposed to be doing, so the dealer knew that these customers were going to get these phone calls, whatever kind of calls they were, prospect calls, service follow-up, whatever. I mean, it's still a struggle today, but back then, nobody was doing any of that with the call center. So it worked real well.
And all we were doing, they were faxing us. This is way before the internet, Paul. So they were faxing us the names of their unsold showroom traffic daily. So we'd get it, we might get 2 or 3 fax. You normally 1 fax a day of 5 or 10, 12, 15 customers. And we'd load those into the dialer, call them, and then we'd send back a fax to the dealership saying, here's why the customer didn't buy. And, he would know if it was a salesperson's problem, a personality with a salesperson, a bad presentation, they didn't have the car, price. I mean, we really, the call center was so important to everything that we turned up being, because it was really the impetus to starting the CRM. Because from 92 to 99, we set up thousands of dealers on the call center, and that produced a very strong revenue stream for the company. And as the internet rolled in the late 90s, what I was worried about was keeping that call center business. And there was no CRMs in the auto industry till probably 99, 2000. So when we started our CRM eLead, it was really, the first thought wasn't to build, this great CRM that turned out to be what it did. It was to save the call center so we could get leads, where they could enter them right in the computer, and we would have real-time information. The dealer wouldn't have to fax us these lists anymore, and we were calling customers an hour after they left the store. So my whole focus on CRM was to really was to get the names for the call center, so I didn't go backwards there. And it ended up, of course, turning into so much more as CRM started to catch on. The internet became so big and leads started hitting stores in the early 2000s, and these stores didn't know how to handle these internet leads. So they needed a technology to keep up with this and to figure out how to call these people back and send emails back. And this was all so new. And I'm not a technology guy. I'm a sales guy. So I hired some great people and partnered with some great people that really, enabled us to start eLead back, in 99.
I can imagine, I know at the store level, people are not always the quickest to want to adapt to change.
But imagine a sales team and a dealer that in 2000, 90% of car dealers were probably in their mid 40s to the dealer was fixing mid 40s to mid 50s to 60s. And they were not technology based at all. So they're thinking, okay, this internet thing's probably not going to last. I
remember that.
We've been writing down our Salesforce management
Black
on
book of all my customers.
Yeah, or on their glass, or they're just taking an uplog that was basically a manually written. Here's the ups we had today, and then they were trying to get salespeople to call them back. They were on index cards. They were paper systems.
Yeah.
And the first eLead was really just a Salesforce tool that kept up with unsold showroom traffic. But remember, I was keeping up with unsold showroom traffic because I was charging the dealer $3 a call to call his unsold showroom traffic. So in the beginning, I think our first dealers on eLead were like $5.95 monthly software fees.
Wow.
And now our average dealer pays what for CRM? $3,000 to $4,000 with
all your
monitors,
stuff and your desking and your
all your tools.
And we know how the salesperson isn't always the first one to want to pick up the phone to make that phone call. So I would imagine that was a huge help in the beginning.
Well, that's where the call center was so successful, because we could go in, and if you're the dealer, I'm telling you, your salespeople don't want to make the call. Then I'm telling you how bad they are, and you don't want your customers or potential customers to be contacted by somebody on the phone that doesn't want to make the call, that has very poor phone skills,
right.
And it's a recipe for disaster. So selling the call center was the easiest product I've ever sold by far, because dealers knew how bad their guys and their people were. And the average dealer back in 2000, probably 30% of them or less had BDCs. So right. It was 70% where salespeople were manually dialing phones. This is before cell phones. So right. They were dialing rotary phones, old-fashioned telephones in dealerships. Trying to get people on home numbers, because you couldn't get them at work back then. It was very difficult. Yeah. There was no such thing as you calling somebody at work and them taking a call, on the work number. So it's almost like a different time. Like people can't, fathom that unless they were around back in the 80s and 90s and doing business that way.
It's amazing how the technology has evolved. I've got a couple of comments I want to jump to here. I don't want to forget. Kenneth Dunner, he lives in Sugar Land, Texas, says, Paul Meyer, savor the flavor of the awesomeness in you, sir, sharing with us. Jared Kalfas. Evening, everyone. Jared is with Black Book. And Micah Larkin. Hi, all. Micah Larkin here. Great to hear about the bee's knees. Thank you. Pat Porras. Good evening, all. Ready for another great session. Thank you, Pat. And Mark Williamson. Hello, everybody. Pat says, congrats. You fill a gap that undisciplined sales staff failed to do.
We definitely did that.
And Ron Usher says, hello, all. Ron is the only tech that I know, that master tech, that actually retired. But now he's getting into racing. So
congratulations.
I'm not sure how much he's really going to be retired, because nobody, as I said, nobody gets out of this business alive. You are a part of it in some way, shape, or form. So that is an incredible start. Whose idea was it with the cookies anyway? Was that just something that popped into your head, Hugh?
I actually was selling when I got out of high school. I started an embroidery company, and I bought this embroidery company. It was just an embroidery machine that embroidered hats and golf shirts. So I went into car dealerships selling those, and there were some dealerships in Valdosta, Jacksonville, that market, because I grew up in Valdosta, Georgia, and set up Elite, and all the companies started out of Valdosta. We actually started selling embroidered apparel to car dealerships, and a couple dealers started saying, hey, we need programs, can you send these hats out, or can you send out a golf shirt? And when you get into that, women don't really like hats or golf shirts, and you got into sizing problems, and we needed something more universal, like a gift. So that's really where the cookie idea came from. I talked to a lot of dealers back in the 84, 85 time zone, and that's where we came up with the cookies. And my dad retired from AT&T, and I put him to work. He was probably mid-50s, and he made the cookies. I got on the road and sold them, and a lot of great things happened.
Well, that's how everything evolves that way. If you listen to your customers, I mean, people ask that all the time. How did you come up with this? How did you think of that? Where did this idea come from? And every reply and every story is you listen to your customers. I mean, it comes up. You spend time with them. You talk about these things. You talk about their pain points, and they tell you what they need. Wouldn't it be great if we could do this? Somebody should have thought of that. And then, you find someone that listens and can kind of bring it to life.
Yeah, that's really cool. Now, because I guess in the customer trust or mistrust of the dealership is a big problem. Lack of transparency. Nobody knows, right? Nobody knows what's around the corner, and it's that fear of the unknown that kind of puts people off, and it prevents them from making what oftentimes is a very simple decision. And this goes way, way back to the early days before the Moroni label was even, invented, where customers would go from store to store with their notepads, and nobody really knew what should be a fair price for the car. What's a good comparison? How do I know I'm paying the right amount of money for this car? How do I know what you did to the car as far as maintenance is concerned or reconditioning? Am I even comparing it to a like vehicle at another lot? So that whole transparency thing, when the Moroni label itself came out way back when, I don't even know what year that came out.
It was in the early 90s. And, Moroni was actually a state senator from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And that's how that was named.
I mean, and that kind of leveled the playing field, if you will, because now people could compare apples to apples.
Right.
At least, am I looking at the same car at dealer A as I am at dealer B and dealer C? But then you guys kind of turbocharged it and just sent it into orbit with just so much more information that kind of takes all the guesswork out of it. Why don't you share with us a little bit about, how that whole piece comes together?
Yeah, so VelocityEngage is, a digital folder, let's say, of all the information that the customer needs on the car that they would have, like you said, back in the day, had to go, well, let me try to find the sticker on this one, or try to find the options on that one, or try to get some service records from one dealer to the next so we can compare them. And it was very overwhelming. Customers used to go to a lot of dealerships because they had to get all that information manually. They had to go ask the salespeople at 7 different dealerships, so they could compare it all before they made this huge buying decision. So now we know the evolution, the whole, beginning of this conversation is how all this has evolved with the internet. But now they can Google all this stuff, and they have to go to still 7, 8, 9, 10 different places to find it all, even if they're just looking at a couple cars at one dealership, or if they're looking at like a similar vehicle across maybe some different brands or different stores. And so, that's everybody who's ever bought a car has been through that. I've been through it. You've been through it. Our dealers talk about it. Part of the CSI problem that the manufacturers we talked about with the retention, they're asking these questions because customers don't have always a good experience, and they don't feel real good even after they've bought the car that maybe of their dreams, a car they really wanted. They maybe don't feel like they had such a good process, or they felt like they were going to get ripped off because they didn't have the information. They literally had to go off the word of their salesperson that said, oh, I think it has, this option, or, they just kind of had to believe them because they didn't have a lot of tools at their fingertips. So what we wanted to do was bring all that to one place. So a customer, even if you land on the right car, they still need to know that they're buying it from the right people, the right dealership, and be able to put all this together without having to go to a lot of different places and put in hours and hours of research. And even just on a dealership's normal website, VDP engagement is the top indicator of a car sale, and customers don't stay engaged with the VDP because they have to leave it to go read about the dealership, or to go find that window sticker, or to go, find the Carfax. It's not all on the VDP like it should be. So that's really what we wanted to do, is bring it in one place. And that's, there's a lot of information, but I think the biggest key is that it's in one place. A lot of this information is already on the dealership's website. They just have to go a lot of different places to find it. And here it's all in one, and it increases that engagement because they don't ever have to leave the page.
And most dealers don't give the consumer or the prospect the original window sticker or service records on their VDP. I'd say 99% of all VDPs, new car franchise dealers, do not have those two products.
Right.
And those are the two things the customer wants to know the most. The dealer that gives them that is creating more trust, more transparency, building more value, which equals more gross, which equals more profit. So this is something that every dealer in America needs. It's our second product within the Velocity Automotive Solutions portfolio. Our first product was the Recon tool, so ReconVelocity, and this has been such a great, refreshing new product introduction for us, because it's selling cars, and it's something that every dealership loves to talk about, because they're giving their customer things, and it's not a product like Recon where you keep up with workflow and accountability and people's jobs and times. And it's been such a great thing for us as a company, because we saw how hard it was for us to go in for the last 2.5 years and get 500 dealers up on a Recon tool. And our Recon tool is Insonic, the first group, the first top 10 public group to do a Recon tool in all their 100 stores. So we're real, proud of that. They've cut their days in half. Corporate reporting, we give them everything they've never had before. So, this is just part of speeding up everything. Velocity, speed. Velocity Automotive Solutions is about cutting your recon time in half. Then when you want to sell the car, making more gross, making that a faster, smoother process. It's a huge competitive advantage to have a tool that does what Engage does and does what ReconVelocity does. And it's all one tool. You can buy it together. You can buy individual pieces of it separate. You can just buy the Engage tool.
What I love about it is that, look, two used cars can look exactly the same on the outside, but have thousands of dollars difference between them insofar as equipment. So if I'm looking at two different cars on two different lots, they may look the same on the outside, but at dealer A, it's got the sport package, it's got the cold weather package, it's got everything listed out that builds value. What somebody might have paid for it new. Now I'm looking at the other car and it doesn't have any of that.
Right.
But that's the value of that original window sticker. And that's probably the thing when we're talking to dealers, one of the top 1 or 2 things we're focusing on And we've got them for all the cars, all makes and models, all OEMs, maybe Ferrari, Porsche, Lamborghini are the only ones that we don't have complete yet. But those stores, you know, really aren't the best prospect for our tool yet, because, you know, Ferrari dealership only sells 10 new Ferraris a month. So we've got these window stickers, and dealers are buying window stickers from certain companies and paying like $4 a piece. And just their window sticker bill a month could be, depending on how many they pulled up, could be $800 to $1,000 to $1,200. You can get a whole tool with VelocityEngage that gives you all the window stickers you need, all the service records, all the other things that come with it, from, you know, video to showing everything about the dealership, to the Carfax, to anything you want to add custom, to price. We need to talk about the price change alerts and heat mapping in this tool, because those are things that are really the game changers in this tool that we want to share with our dealers.
You mean, so if somebody's interested in a particular car, they could set like alerts if there's a price drop or something like that?
So with VelocityEngage, alerts happen a couple different ways. If I'm just shopping on a dealership's website and I see this car that I like, I can sign up for a price change alert where the portfolio will automatically be texted or emailed, however the customer wants to get it, to their phone as soon as the price has changed. So the salesperson never has to do anything. We have the inventory feed coming in, so we know as soon as the used car manager makes a price change, the portfolio goes out automatically with that new price. And then for any customer that's ever been sent a portfolio, you can set up actually workflows in the CRM. There's lots of different things that we can do to get these portfolios out that don't even involve a salesperson sending them. Like the systems just talk to each other, and we can pick up those identifiers to know when to send these out automatically. So it makes it really easy for salespeople, which we haven't even talked about that part of it. Salespeople love this tool too, because it gives them so much value and valuable information to, you know, hold their price, not always just have to be in that negotiation. So they really like it, but it's really good for them because it's so automated.
But if we send, let's say you're a consumer, Paul, and we send you this digital portfolio, Engage, it's branded with the dealership name, with the salesperson, his picture, his cell phone number, all the Zoom, all the ways to get in touch with the dealership, phone numbers, all their social media, Facebook, Instagram, all that. But
it's like they're doing it, but it's actually getting done.
Right.
But the consumer, when they access it, let's say they go on it and they spend 4 minutes on window stickers, the original window sticker, and they spend 7 minutes on the service records, looking at it, and 2 minutes on the Carfax, and 1 minute on the digital retailing process the dealership has. Yeah. The second that the consumer finishes, the salesperson's notified, and it shows via the heat mapping exactly what the consumer was looking at, how long they were on it. And if you're a salesperson, now you know, basically, if you spent the most time on that module, that's probably what you're most interested in, correct? Yes. So you're able to put your word tracks around, okay, Mr. Customer, you know, we are, you know, we're one of the few dealerships in our market that gives this window sticker to everybody, and it shows this, this, and this. And we're very proud of service records and how we show those, and our competition doesn't. And nobody knows more about the service records on this car than I do. And I'd like to talk to you about it, because he's got it right in front of him.
Yeah, it makes them the expert. They're the expert on the car now. Right.
But imagine it's like reading your customer's mind.
Yeah.
Because now you know what they were looking at, and it's very powerful. And when we get in front of dealers and talk about this, you know, it's something that they can really see the value in, and it's not anything that they have, and it's not anything that they have to change, and get used to another new piece of software. What's the main reason dealers don't buy technology now in the auto industry, Paul?
Well, because they're afraid of change. They hate change, and they're afraid that their people aren't going to want to implement that change, and they're afraid to hold accountable.
Will my people use the tool if I buy it? And
a lot of shiny pennies.
And that's why we can 100% look them in the eye and say, with Engage, everybody's going to love it. It's automated. It's so easy. People don't have to stop or change or do something different or come off another product. If we go in and talk about Recon, and then we have to do a harder job of building the value, because people are going to have to come off a paper system or a Google Docs tool, or even there are a few competitors out there on the Recon side. So if they have to change something, dealers worry, okay, I don't want to hear my guys fussing, so I'm not going to buy right now. With Engage, there is none of that, because
right.
Every salesperson loves the tool, because now he's got a sales presentation in front of him that is phenomenal. It shows everything about the car. So a new salesperson sounds like a total veteran now, because he knows everything about the car. And even a veteran guy doesn't have the service records at his fingertips, or the original MSRP and all the stuff that's on the original window sticker.
But the strongest part of all is people buy from people they like and trust, right? So if you are inside your customer's head and as you said, you have a report, a heat map of exactly what's important to them, when you have that conversation and you're focusing in on the things that are important to them, it shows trust, right? The old school, Jackie B. Cooper used to say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. If I know you spent X amount of time looking at the window sticker or X amount of time looking at the service records, now I've read your mind when I make that phone call to you, and I very nonchalantly get into that conversation. It's important to you.
Right.
And you're glad that I'm somebody that listens to you and is having the conversation that you want to have. So that makes
the things that are the most important to you.
Yeah.
And now you're building trust and transparency, which builds value, and that's how you get growth.
And I love the automated part, because how often is it, well, what did you guys do to that car? Well, I could find out.
Right.
Bam, there's another phone call. There's another hour, 2 hours delay. Nobody wants delay. We live in micro moments today.
And
right?
the salesperson never gets that information because it's too hard. It's too cumbersome. So they never get back with the customer. And the customer has a difficult time getting that from any dealership, because it's hard to gather all this stuff. So, we, by having the window stickers and by having all the service records from the DMS and whatever tools they're on, we pull all this information, we put it in one easy spot, we automate it, tell me how we send this out through the CRMs, because I think that's huge.
Yeah, I think through experience with eLead CRM and Service One and all the things that we've done over our careers, integration is so important. It's one of the most important things when you're talking about technology in a car dealership, because there's so many moving pieces. You have, there's tons. I won't go down the list, but when we build these tools, we have that in mind. How can we make this one less step, one less tab they have to have open, one less login they have to go to? Dealers say that all the time. I don't want my people to have to log into one more tool. So with ReconVelocity and with VelocityEngage, we have what we call our insights, where we integrate with any tool that the dealership's using, their CRM, their vAuto, their inventory management tool, whatever they're on. And if we have VINs alike, our tools integrate automatically. So if I'm in vAuto and I see that this car is also in ReconVelocity, I can see exactly what step it's in the recon process. I can see that, the pictures are missing or whatever's going on with the car. And really the same thing happens with Engage on the sales side. If I'm sitting there working in my CRM and this tool is in VelocityEngage, I can see how many times it's been sent, the engagements on that, how many times it's been opened, how many customers it's been sent to. So everything talks to each other. And that's just being able to see the data. But from a standpoint of a salesperson using it and sending it out, they never have to log into our tool. They can do it all from their existing CRM. We set it up as an email template. We can set it up in their texting platform. They send it from their cell phone. So unless, they want to look at some real detailed reports, your average salesperson never even has to log into VelocityEngage. They can do it all from the tools that they're already using in the event that the CRM's not sending it out automatically for them.
But when the CRM sends it out and you get all these hundreds and hundreds more contacts with this tool, it's huge. It makes a big difference in used car sales. So you're going to sell more cars at a higher gross. And I mean, we've got stores that, are sending it through the CRM now, and we're getting 1,000 to 1,500 more sent out than, they were sending out anything before. And,
Right.
and every CRM has something they send out. It's a letter or an email template.
It's a canned email template,
Yeah.
99% of the time.
But that's what the consumer wants. So they want to see things about the vehicle that help them make a buying decision. They want to see window stickers. They want to see service records. They want to see video.
Why buy here? They want to see video from the people.
Totally. And it integrates with all the dealerships' existing digital retailing tools. That's a common question that we get is, do I have to like switch over to something else? And you don't. Anything that's set up in this portfolio are tools that you're already using. So you don't have to make any other changes at all, which makes it really easy. And the customer's never going to get to that digital retailing, bottom of the funnel to click to buy the car if they don't have the information that they need at the top of the funnel. So you're never going to get to digital retailing if you're not given all the information that you need, which was another, push behind this VelocityEngage product.
It's like a bridge to digital retailing. That you get, if you don't do this bridge, they don't ever go there because they don't feel like you're the right store for them or the right company because you're not giving them the right information.
You give them everything they're asking. The new business model, you gain control by giving up control. By giving them the information, you lead them to the path that is best for them because there's no fear of loss.
Right.
They know everything about it.
We're starting to understand that, but like 5 years ago, going into stores every single day, that was still hard for them. They didn't want to give too much information because they want the customer to come in or they want the customer to have to pick up the phone and call. And then you're kind of back to the situation with the call center. Then you have these people on the phone that aren't equipped to answer the questions that they're going to ask. And it's kind of the same, the same cycle there. So I do think though, the dealers are much more willing today, and maybe through COVID and everything that we've been through, that they know they've got to give it up and get that information out there. Because if they don't have it, they're just going to move on to the next store that does until they find it.
They've got to do more with less today. And this is something they don't have to do. It's done automatically for them.
Right.
Let me get to a couple of comments here. I don't want to fall behind. Nathaniel Ebel, good evening, guys. He's in the transportation business.
Hello.
Paul Machine from Black Book. Good evening, family. Recon is a hidden profit center for dealerships. He says CarMax has mastered the Recon process. ReconVelocity is bringing found money to dealers. No joke. I've talked to a lot of dealers that have used it and love it. When trust goes up, profit goes up. It's a pretty simple equation. It's there's no voodoo here.
That's true.
Lowell Wilson says love it. Mike Vogel, he's out on the West Coast as well. Transparency is a game changer for the dealership. And Lowell says, glad I made it. Paul Machine said, love the digital portfolio that includes all service records. And Lowell says, absolutely. Given the customer the what and the why, leaves everything else, leaves whatever was to chance, no more guesswork. Ron Usher says, the more info customer gets, the more trust they gain. They feel comfortable to buy with a thumbs up emoji. And Lowell Wilson says, you nailed it, Ron. Yeah, I mean, it's so basic.
Great. Yeah, it does seem basic, doesn't it? But here we are talking about it because it's been so impactful for our stores that we've put it in. And, it seems like it should be on every website and part of every sales process through, every presentation, whether I'm in the showroom and I'm doing this on my iPad and walking through this portfolio or sending it to you on your phone in a text message, it's the evolution. It's what customers want. They're telling us what they want, and we got to be able to put it together for them.
But there's a lot of big dealers doing this already. Brian Bitzop, Paragon Honda, he's, a lot of dealers are familiar with him. He's been on ReconVelocity for 2 years. He's been on Engage probably about a month now. Remember, Engage has only been out about 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of big stores on this, a lot of groups on this, and it's something we're really excited about.
And he's a forward thinker, that guy. I mean, he's a guy that can see something and jump on it because he believes in it and follow through with making it work.
Yeah. And when we talked to him about this in the very beginning, when we were showing it to him, really the very beginning of creating the product, he loves so much about being able to find out and be able to see why customers aren't buying. What are they not looking at? What's not engaging that we're trying to shove down their throat so they don't even care about, or if a customer comes in and they leave and they don't buy, maybe there's a video that, of Brian where he can engage with that customer, and we want your feedback. We want to know why you didn't decide to do business with us. And, he's very forward thinking, like you said. And so we take a lot of his ideas and mull them around and want to customize the tool for him, but really for all dealers. When it comes to video and what dealers put in each one of these modules that get sent out in the portfolio, everybody has different ideas, and a lot of them are really good. And some of them will put in and we'll standardize and add it to the product. And some of them will just customize for that store. But it's great to have their feedback. And that's a lot of what we do is talk to them, show them, get their ideas. And that's what makes these products so great, is because we get their feedback and then implement it.
The adaptability, or the ability to change for a particular store, that's key also, because there is no one size fits all product in our business. Right. So to be able to tailor it to a particular store, and the part about finding out why the customer didn't buy, in my opinion, that's more important than why they bought.
Yeah.
Because if you can find out, let's face it, if a store is on average closing at 20%, it might be higher now because of COVID, only because we've got no inventory, we've got pent up demand, we've got cash dumped into the economy. So maybe that number is a little bit higher. But if we just go to normal times and we assume 20% of the customers buy, that's 8 out of 10 that didn't buy. That data is a whole lot more valuable than anything, because that's the data that you use to change the other number.
Right.
That's key stuff there. And a lot of where failure happens at stores is in process or lack of process, right? There doesn't seem to be any type of consistent process. And let's face it, there's a lot of turnover in the car business,
right,
as with a lot of businesses. So it's hard, even if you had a process, it's hard to continually, as new people come in, sometimes some of them have some bad habits, it's hard to stay on top of training each person to make sure that the process is consistent. So I like an automated process where, you know what's important to the customer, what's important to the dealer. Now you fill in all the blanks, and it's on autopilot, right?
Right. Yeah.
Going out where and when the way it needs to.
And dealers spend so much money, on digital and marketing and all these tools on their websites and all these buttons they stick in places to try to get customers to click and to eventually end up on these VDPs. And, again, they spend a ton of money trying to get the customer there, and then the customer has to bail because they don't have the information that they need. So, we can see what's the most engaging content. So if a dealer is putting something on their website or sending something out in email blasts, or, part of their process might not be working, you're going to see that in that heat mapping, because people are not going to be clicking on it. Or if they do, they're not going to be staying on it for very long. And then we can further customize those portfolios to include the most engaging content. And then, so that's part of our performance reporting. And when we talk with these stores every couple of weeks and, show them how they're doing and kind of, go over these KPIs with them, that's one of the things that we review.
And at Paul and Ely, we were really strong at dealer support. Nothing's changed as we've set up this new company. We have performance people that, first of all, Engage gets used, and it's so automated that you don't have to really do that much training. But, you want managers using this tool with daily save a deal meetings to come in and look at this and say, okay, these 15 customers out of the 40 portfolios we sent out yesterday, spent the most time, had the most, they're our highest value customers. And when they do those deals now they're not just working a CRM where they're looking at, customers with birthdays or customers that are 30 days old or
day 27 follow-up call. Yeah. That's what it says,
This is way more stronger prospects, leads, and follow-up. So, they're selling cars off this tool. Salespeople are using this now because they can see and do everything. They become instant experts on the vehicle. And the key is, if you're a Nissan dealer or Toyota dealer, and let's say you're a Toyota dealer and somebody trades in a Nissan, and you're trying to sell that used, you don't have product knowledge training on that usually. So with this information we're giving you, you know everything about the car. You know everything on that MSRP, the original window sticker. You know everything.
Let me also add that with those window stickers, to that same exact point, I'm a Toyota store. I'm taking this Nissan in, right? I can put that VIN and get the original window sticker for that car so I can value the trade properly. That's a huge piece of this.
Right.
Is that dealers are missing these trades and they're not putting a correct number on the cars because they don't know them. They don't know what equipment it comes with, and they don't have any access to tools to pull that quickly, or they don't have access to it at all. And they miss deals.
So if you're a used car manager, you have Engage, you can click on the VIN and up pops the original window sticker. So you're now, when you're doing your book outs and everything, you're able to get information that's going to give the customer the real value for that car, which is going to help you buy more used cars. And dealers need used cars in inventory now more than anything.
Yeah, that's a great tool. And I have to tell you, mistakes do get made sometimes, right? But with a tool like that, I'll tell you a short story. Years ago at Saab, I took in I put a number on a Jeep. I thought it was a good number. Mm-hmm. Now I'm in the Northeast. How many two-wheel drive Jeeps do you think you see?
Million.
In the Northeast? No.
That was humor.
Less than
well, I put a four-wheel drive number.
Nobody has two-wheel drive Jeeps. I didn't even think they made them.
Well, I found out then that, that's a rear-wheel drive, not a four-wheel drive. Well, fortunately, I had connections and I was able to place the car with a dealer down south, but that was a very big surprise that I had.
Right.
So this tool essentially eliminates all that. And it does a lot more. So by knowing all the stuff that it has and putting the real number on it, somebody else doesn't know about all that equipment. Look, they're going to want to steal the car, which is hard to do now just because of the market. But again, all that's going to change when the bubble goes up, right? All that's going to change. But now, if you know everything about that car and you know the value, you can pinpoint it better, you've got a better shot at buying that car, where somebody else maybe doesn't know, they're going to want to try to steal it. Or even if they don't try to steal it, they may be off because of equipment that's added value, that's worth more to the consumer, hence it's worth more to the dealer.
Right.
It's worth more to the person that's going to more than likely trade it in with you, because you know all the stuff that's in it where the other guy might not. And that's instantaneous, right?
And it helps with the whole experience for the customer. Every customer brings their car to trade it and thinks that they should be getting a lot more than the dealer's offering, right? Every day, every trade, every customer. So we already know that. So if we can go in and then stand behind our number and say, this is what this car is worth, and here's the supporting documents for that, the customer feels better about it. And it's just, again, part of the whole cycle of, making that experience for the customer so much better and more of what they want it to be, so that we don't have the bad reputation that we do sometimes in the car industry of, we know how it is. And then customers complain, it takes too long. Right. I don't feel like I got a fair deal. They don't feel like they were in control.
Takes too long. Reminds me, not that long ago, I'd say it was about 3 years ago, I walked into a store, and on the showroom, they had their easel with a big sign on it, ask about our express 2-hour delivery. There's nothing express about a 2-hour delivery.
No. Well, when you compare it to 6 or 8 hours, I guess, 2 hours doesn't sound too bad. But it's not anything your customer looks forward to.
Those poor people that spend 8 hours at the dealership, and you always remember the last words I say, yeah, I never intended to buy a car today, as the salesperson's offloading the stuff from the one car into the next car at 110 degrees. Got a couple of comments here. Pat says, people development plus improved process are critical in any business. That is 100% true. It is all about what the consumer perceives as value.
That's right.
What's another cool part of it, and there's benefits either way, right? So putting the right price on a car means if it has more equipment, showing them that, hey, you know what, I'm giving you more value for the car because you have this, and that. Or on the flip side, well, I know, Mr. Customer, you're expecting X amount of dollars for your car, but I just want to put it into perspective. You have these two items on your car. Most of the cars that we see in our market have these additional packages, which you're right, would have gotten you that additional X amount of dollars that you're looking for, but unfortunately, yours does not have it. We know this because we have the technology and we have the experience to be able to share this with you. And by all means, you could try to sell it yourself, but this is what you're competing with. So yeah, I'm a big one for technology.
And it's there in front of them for them to read it themselves. It's not just me telling you and you having to take my word for it. There's power in that.
There's less of you having that race to the bottom discussion because they're fulfilling their own dream themselves.
Yeah.
They know what they're looking for. They're excited about it, and they can see all the things that they have. And wow, this car just had pads and rotors put on it. That's something I'm not going to have to spend money on. Or wow, brand new tires. Saves me $1,000.
Well, totally. And that's a big part. We haven't really even talked much about the reconditioning side of it, but dealers on average are spending $1,200. That's the average, to recon a car. And then they're never telling the customer about it. I mean, they're not even saying it because, for one, the salesperson probably doesn't know. And then maybe they don't have the documents to be able to prove what they've done. But this makes it so easy for that. And it's definitely added value on top of everything else we just talked about.
Yeah. Now, I like I said, and I love video. People, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. Video is worth even more, in my opinion.
Every consumer's too. I mean, today video is king for sure. That's what people want to see is video. And most customers are looking at pictures first and then looking at any kinds of videos they have of the interior, exterior of the car. And most dealerships just have kind of that carousel, right, of all the still pictures put into motion. But with VelocityEngage, they can really put any kind of video in there about the dealership, about the car, about the personnel, the general manager, the salesperson themselves.
Testimonials.
Yeah, and make it way more personalized. Again, through video, which is the content that we want to see. That's what we're consuming most. And it's way more powerful for the sale.
And you've heat mapped all of this. So you're now collecting data. So if a dealership sells 200 cars, they've got 1,000 people maybe, right, that have engaged with the dealership and their content.
Right.
How powerful is it to have data from 1,000 people to help guide you into where you should be focusing your energies in the marketing piece of it?
Right. Absolutely.
And that's just touching where we're going with this. We'll be building analytics and reports showing that. So we're excited about that. Wow.
I guess you learn a couple of things over a few years in the business, huh, Hugh?
Most of this is newer stuff. What you learn over the business is how to take care of dealers and build great relationships and find great people to help you build these kind of companies.
And you guys are nationwide. You're in every state.
Yeah.
Do you have a large team?
No, at least, of course, at Ely, we had a large team. Now we probably have 20, 25 programmers. Plus we have a lot of outsourced third-party, teams that supplement our programmers. We have 10 or 15 people that are trainers, performance. And we have another 5 or 10 in admin and clerical and payroll. And then we have a sales team of about anywhere from 4 to 7 and growing.
Yeah, we still have people in the stores. So, through COVID, we kind of had to take a break from our people going face to face. But Hugh's always believed really strongly in showing up and shaking hands and, going to dinner and, spending time together face to face and really building those relationships. We have to, of course, do things on the phone and through Zoom calls like everybody else does, but we've never backed off or reduced our field team at all. We just, still do as much as we can face to face. I think that makes a difference when you're, when you're trying to be sold by a million vendors a month, trying to sell you this, sell you that, all the latest, technology, and we can go to the store and actually sit down with you and let you touch it and feel it, almost like buying a car, right? They still got to come in and they want to smell the new car, and it helps, and it helps to build those relationships and support our dealers better when we can have some of it be face to face.
Well, you focus the energy where it needs to be. I mean, you built a wonderful product that is kind of turnkey. They don't have to worry about doing a lot of things to it. They don't have to do much of anything to it.
They really don't. And it's really easy to set up. Turnaround time is, can be a week. I mean, it's really easy. We have a whole online university where when you do have the turnover or the people that need to be trained, they'll just hop on the phone with one of our people or just really go to one of those training courses. And over time, as we maybe add things to this, or if they're using both tools together, we can give that reporting back to the dealer of how engaged they are with the trainings and, who's completed, or we can certify them, give them awards and badges. We can do a lot of different things with that. But, we want to make sure that it's easy enough. They don't have to do too much training. They shouldn't have to be logging into those things very often, or else the tool's too hard.
No, I like it. If I'm a store, and I'd say there's huge opportunity here because most people don't have this.
No, still probably 80-90% of the stores don't have a digital portfolio piece. They have BDP stuff, but they don't show window stickers and they don't show service records.
And they don't have it in their CRM in a way that looks, other than those canned emails like we talked about. And
90% don't have a recon tool,
right?
Which is even more surprising with all the touch points, all the people, all the workflow process. That's unfathomable. It's crazy. I mean, but it's the reason they don't is because it's a lot of work to get it bought in, and they got to see the value.
Before COVID hit, one of the biggest expenses in the store was carrying costs, right?
And this cuts 7 days off carrying cost in an average store. If you put ReconVelocity in place in your store, you're probably at 10 to 12 days average recon time. You can cut 4 or 5 days off of it within a 90-day period. Of course, you have to manage it. People have to use it, but that's 20 to 30 to 40 grand in additional profits a month.
Oh, easily.
But the biggest thing really is that every dealer that we talk to, I can name, hundreds of stores that we sold ReconVelocity to that all thought that they were between, 4, 5, 6 days for their recon time.
They're not.
And none, a single one of them were. So we get in there and, and they give us a chance to prove it, and that's all fine. And then they're happy to say, we did cut some time off. You're right. We were missing some things here, missing some things there. There's a lot of people involved in the process when you take a car, when you put it back out. And, they're really usually just tracking that time that it's in service, and you can track when an RO opens and when an RO closes. That's the easy part. It's very rarely the mechanical step that's costing you a lot of time. It's all those outliers and all those other things, and where are the keys and the recalls that need to be done, and did we order parts on time, and all these things that aren't really managed very effectively.
Yeah, because there's so much going on.
Right. There's so many people touching a car.
That's great stuff. Wow. We've only just scratched the surface here on all the stuff that could be done here.
Yeah, it's a lot. But, it's recon software is not mainstream yet. It's not like everybody has a CRM or everybody has, an inventory management tool. Most people don't have a recon tool. I think over, the next couple of years, it will be more mainstream. Dealers will really realize that they need to focus more on this. But for the ones that are doing it now, they're just saving themselves a lot of money and a lot of time.
And with our company, with Velocity, you can get the recon tool, you can get the digital portfolio engage, you can get no contract, you can get so many things like great support, all the great things we did at eLead, we're just replicating now and starting over with a lot more experience.
And literally a week could be as little as a week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we can get engage set up in a week. Typically, the recon tool takes 2 weeks because there's a little more workflow process you have to build.
Still, that's good timing. I've worked for big companies, and we were putting people out 5-6 weeks.
Right, and that's what we had to do with CRM too. 4 to 6 weeks was our average mark, and when you got busy, sometimes it was longer. Because there's a lot to build there, but the process is really easy. There's very little that the dealership has to do to set any of it up. We just need a little bit of information, and most of it we can gather ourselves.
Right.
And we get it going and test it all out and do all the training.
Let me just get into a couple of comments here. Ron Usher says, hey, Paul, I got a great snowmobile for sale. Runs great in the summer. Robert Allen Carvel says, hello, everyone from Atlanta. Relationships are very important in our business. And Mark Williamson says, great products from great people. You can't go wrong. And Robert says, things move so fast in the service world and the people just don't understand how it works. And Paul Machine says, another great show, Paul. Paul, thank you, man. I appreciate you guys are on every week, Black Book, supporting the show, and so many of you others here. I really appreciate it. We're going to put your contact info in the thread, and that way anybody that has any questions whatsoever, reach out to Hugh, reach out to Kayla, reach out to me. We are all connected in this world of ours, so I'll make sure to get you to the right person when you need it. So thank you very much for being on the show. I appreciate it. I wish we had more time.
Thank you.
There's only 24 hours in a day. We can only talk about so much.
It was a lot of fun. Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody, for your comments. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Have an awesome week coming up. Everybody stay safe, and we'll see you next week on Sunday Night Live.
Bye.